I want to talk about a different kind of king on this Christ the King Sunday. And this is for the sermon for November 20th, 2022. And I'm first going to read from Jeremiah 23. And this is about after Israel and Judah have been scattered and broken apart as kingdoms. They had already broken into two kingdoms, and then they were scattered and crushed by big worldly powers. And then in Jeremiah, we have this tenderness from God saying, I'm going to gather what's left. I'm going to pull the sheep together and set over them a just leader. So Jeremiah 23, 3-6. God says, I'll take over and gather what's left of my sheep, gather them in from all the lands where I've driven them. I'll bring them back where they belong, and they'll recover and flourish. I'll set shepherd leaders over them who will take good care of them. They won't live in fear or panic anymore. All the lost sheep rounded up. This is God's decree. Time's coming when I'll establish a truly righteous David branch, a ruler who knows how to rule justly. He'll make sure of justice and keep people united. In his time, Judah will be secure again, and Israel will live in safety. This is the name they'll give God, the God who puts everything right. And then from Luke 22, 24-33. And this is Jesus talking about a different kind of kingship, and he's trying to teach his disciples to not go with the way of the world. So Luke 22. Within minutes, the disciples were bickering over who of them would end up the greatest. But Jesus intervened. Kings like to throw their weight around, and people in authority like to give themselves fancy titles. It's not going to be that way with you. Let the senior among you become like the junior. Let the leader act the part of the servant. Who would you rather be, the one who eats the dinner or the one who serves the dinner? You'd rather eat and be served, right? But I've taken my place, Jesus says. I've taken my place among you as the one who serves. And you've stuck with me through thick and thin. Now I confer on you the royal authority my Father conferred on me, so you can eat and drink at my table in my kingdom and be strengthened as you take up responsibilities among the congregations of God's people. Simon, stay on your toes. Satan has tried his best to separate all of you from me, like chaff from wheat. Simon, I've prayed for you in particular, that you not give in or give out. When you have come through the time of testing, turn to your companions and give them a fresh start. Well, the idea of the king in the ancient world was one who ruled so absolutely and so powerfully that the word was unquestioned. There were no advisors. The king ruled absolutely. And that's how a lot of worldly leaders today want it to be. They don't want people questioning them or giving them advice. They want to just say what is and have everyone accept it. Armies swiftly moved to enforce the king's decisions with brutality in the ancient world. Kings believed that their power was the power of God. It was the same as the power of God, and they commonly called themselves a son of God. And so that's interesting. But God has given us Jesus, who showed us an entirely different kind of power. And this is the key. When you see Christians and churches acting like the world's power, that is a clue that perhaps they are following the world's ways and not Jesus's way. And so, we have not absolute domination, but we have a power that conforms us, that transforms us and everything around us by compassion and the power of love. And you all remember the story of the north wind and the sun. They had an argument as to who was more powerful. And the north wind immediately thought, I'm definitely more powerful. And so the north wind and the sun agree to get a man to take his coat off, his cloak in the ancient world. And the north wind thought, no problem, I can blow the cloak off of this man. And so starts out with wind and cold. And of course, the more the wind and the more the cold comes, the more tightly he wraps the cloak around him. And then the sun says, let me take a turn. And of course, the sun warms him gently. And at first he leaves the cloak on because he's been so cold from the north wind that he leaves it on. But then as the sun warms gradually and consistently, pretty soon he's taken the cloak off and leaves it on the side of the road in the story, in the Aesop's fable. And so the small nation of Israel and Judah has been conquered, the people scattered. And then in Jeremiah, we have the promise of God, I'll bring them back, I'll give them a shepherd leader. Not a king, but a shepherd leader who will love them and take care of them, much like a shepherd cares for the sheep. And I came across this quote, justice is getting what you deserve. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. And grace is getting what you absolutely don't deserve. Benign goodwill, unprovoked compassion, and the unearnable gift. So when we receive a gift of love and we've done nothing to earn it, because you cannot earn grace. There's no way that you can earn grace. So the last verse in the Luke passage is about serving and strengthening community. Peter, as we know, Simon Peter, he denied knowing Jesus after having traveled with him and worked with him and taught with him. He denied knowing, and Jesus knew that was coming, and Simon Peter couldn't see it. But to save his own skin, he denied knowing Jesus. I might do the same thing. I know that I'm human and I'm weak. And so here's Jesus compassionately saying, when you recover, strengthen those around you. Give your love and compassion to others. And there it is. When we fall, when we fail, we can return in that compassion, in that being transformed by love, and then we can give it to others out of true humility. It's nothing short of a miracle. So to affirm that Jesus is King, the one who changes everything, is to affirm a different kind of kingship. And this is the whole point of this sermon. Churches and Christians want to identify with a winner. They want to be the winner. They want to identify with the winner. They want to imagine Christ the King as the world imagines kings, telling everyone what to do and telling everyone that they've got a corner on the truth. I see this in churches where they are interlocked with political power. So the church wants to be a winner so badly that they will bind themselves with political power, which then they feel they can use that power to tell everyone their corner on the truth. Of course, they don't see different truths. They just see one truth, their truth. It's the way. And so there is a joining with the world's ways. And when we see the church and with Christians doing that, I think it draws us up short. And Jesus is clear. Would you rather be the one eating the dinner or the one serving the dinner? Well, everyone would rather have those serving. And everyone would rather be served than the one who serves. That's another key. When the church is all about ruling others and telling them what to do and what not to do, I think the power of transformation of love is far more subtle, like the warmth of the sun. It's hard to grasp. It's hard for our human minds to grasp because we want to be winners. We want to identify with the King, with the all-powerful ruler. And so it's a hard thing. But Jesus came to teach us about a different kind of power, a different kind of kingship. And this is one of humility and not domination power. This is one of upside down kingdom, downward mobility, as Jesus was fond of saying. Jesus wants us to spread a revolution of love and grace. Foolishness at times, not the wisdom of the world. Definitely not the way of the world. So when we invite others to community meals, when we invite others into conversation, when we invite others just into when we listen, when we simply listen, do we know their names? Do we know a little bit of their story? Do we know what they care about? Making those connections with people. That's the kind of love and grace that Jesus was about. It's not about we're right and you all are wrong. Instead, it's transformation and compassion. It's about being open to new relationships, paying attention. It's not about getting something. It's not about getting more people in church. It's not about making things happen, forcing things to happen. And that's how a lot of churches see it. If only we did this and we got this to happen. Instead, it's more like the warmth of the sun. It's an upside down kind of power. It's a power of love and transformation. It's humility. It's grace. It's giving grace where there's no reason to give grace. It's giving love when they have not earned it. And how have we received grace? There's no way we can earn it. And so we're called into that same kind of giving by Jesus. Jesus was no doormat, and Jesus did not call people to be doormats. Not any way, not anyhow. The kind of giving that Jesus did, the kind of laying down of his power, and the kind of giving love was tremendously active and powerful and tiring, difficult. That's the kind of love. It is not passive. It's not forcing anything to happen. And it is not domination. And instead, it's a giving. It's seeing injustice in the world and wanting a different way and finding ways to love into a different way. Not forcing a solution, but loving our way into a solution for injustice. It takes more creativity, more curiosity, more awareness, more watching, more. It's not about dominating. It's about loving from the underside. When we get tribal, now I just heard about a church in the South that had a young couple want to join the church. In fact, they became active, and then they wanted to join. But it was a black person married to a white person. And do you know that the pastor told them it might be better if you find another church? That's what happens still in the South today. The church was not ready to have members that was a black married to a white. That breaks my heart that that's going on still. But again, it's about winning. It's about having people like us in the church. We want more people like us. We don't want those outsiders that do things we don't approve of. Instead, it's not about dominating. It's about love and grace, surprising grace. When we get tribal and we hate outsiders and we want the king to banish or kill them, set them outside, this is not what Jesus wanted and not what Jesus lived. Christ the King is a completely different image, a life poured out in compassion, which is costly. Even in the midst of cruelty and corruption, which keep the poor locked in poverty. Instead, Christ the King is a subversion. It's a working underneath and then lifting together. It's about love. It's about love changing things, changing the reality. It's always been the way of the world that religion and politics will lock together and force things to happen. And that's why I hate some of the hymns that we have that are all about domination and all about we're in charge and isn't this glorious? You know, God is in charge of glory, and I don't see it, and I can't make it happen. What I see is Jesus's power of subversion, Jesus's power of love, which is not about dominating. I have a real tough time with a lot of the hymns in our hymnal because they came from a time in the church when the church wanted to be lifted up to be an equal power with government. That is problematic. That's not the kind of Christ the King that we understand. The works of mercy that the disciples carry out seem to have greater power in them than during Jesus' earthbound life. So when Jesus was crucified, dead and buried, and then raised from the dead, there was a new suffusion. It's like a spreading of love and resurrection power throughout the whole world, through all disciples. It's there for us, but it's not about worldly ruling and power. So 3 things about Jesus is Lord. It's not about pomp, wealth, gold, and domination. It's not about worldly power. It's about help given to others simply because those others share our common humanity. Second, Jesus is Lord does not support the existing powers when there is injustice, when people are being crushed by worldly power or church power. It's not, Jesus is Lord doesn't mean keeping the powers as they are when there's injustice. It's about subverting that power. It's about turning it upside down so that the first are last and the last are first. Do political powers want the first to be last and the last to be first? No, political power is about hanging on. I've been in power this long, I'm going to hang on until I die. You know, it's about keeping power, strengthening wealth in the ruling class. Jesus is Lord is not about that. It's about the opposite. And the third thing, Jesus is Lord does not mean only quiet prayer, meditation, and hope in heaven. Instead, it's transformation of suffering. And so Jesus as Lord means we engage the world. We engage our neighbors, showing love in action, making the world a better place. It's hard work. It's difficult. It's not passive. It's not doormat. It's about speaking truth to power in times of injustice, times of foolishness, being the foolishness of Christ, being that kind of upside down wisdom. Amen.